Last time, Maya Sinclair sat in her attorney's office and learned that the man she had trusted with a signature had used that signature to quietly move nearly $500,000 in marital assets into an entity she hadn't known existed. That he had likely gone through her private files. That he had used her own research, years of careful, disciplined work, to grow money he had redirected away from her. And then a forensic digital investigator named Priya Anand had sent 3 sentences that stopped everything cold. What I found in the first hour of looking suggests this goes significantly deeper than a single document and 3 overlapping investment positions. When can you come in? Maya had read it twice, set her coffee down, and sat in the quiet of her home office while the man who had built a deception around her slept in the next room. She had built herself ready for what she knew. She was about to find out how much she hadn't known. Before we go deeper into what Priya found, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because every time I share Maya's story, it reaches people I never expected, and I think that means something. So let me know you're here. Priya Anand's office was on the 4th floor of a building that looked from the outside entirely unremarkable. No signage beyond a suite number. A waiting room with 2 chairs and a plant and a receptionist who asked for Maya's name, confirmed her appointment, and offered nothing else. Maya appreciated the discretion. She had chosen Sandra partly for the same reason. Priya herself was 43 years old, compact and precise in the way of someone who had spent 2 decades in a field that rewarded exactness above almost everything else. She had worked in corporate forensic investigation before going independent. She shook Maya's hand without ceremony and led her into an office that was organized with a specificity that Maya, who understood the value of organized systems, immediately respected. She had 3 monitors. All of them are active. She sat across from Maya and opened a folder without preamble. "I want to walk you through what I found chronologically," Priya said. "Because the order matters. It tells a story that individual pieces wouldn't tell on their own." "Go ahead." 3 years ago, around the time you incorporated Sinclair Private Holdings, someone ran a search using a data broker service for financial entities associated with your maiden name. Your maiden name, Maya, not your married name. The search didn't find Sinclair Private Holdings because you incorporated under a variation that doesn't connect directly to either name. But the search happened, and the IP address it came from belongs to a device registered to Daniel Sinclair. Maya was still. He was looking for my assets 3 years ago. He was looking for something, Priya said carefully. Whether he found anything significant at that point, I don't believe he did. But the search tells us the intention existed earlier than the timeline we had been working with. Priya turned to her left monitor and pulled up a timeline. Clean, color-coded, meticulous. 8 months ago, you mentioned that you came home and found your filing cabinet drawer not fully closed. Yes. I need to tell you what I believe happened in that window, because it wasn't just the cabinet. She pulled up a second document. The laptop you use for your private accounts. Do you ever leave it logged in when you step away from your office? Maya thought back. 8 months ago had been a difficult stretch. Her mother had been unwell. Maya had been making frequent trips to help her, sometimes leaving the house in a hurry, sometimes coming back distracted. There may have been times, she said quietly, when I left it open. I believe on at least one occasion Daniel accessed that laptop. I can't pull the session logs directly without a court order for the device, but I can tell you that 3 weeks after the date you identified, 2 of the investment positions you hold in Sinclair Private Holdings were mirrored in DRS Capital. Not similar positions, the same companies, entered at the same price point, within a 48-hour window. The room was very quiet. He saw my screen, Maya said. I believe so. Maya looked at the timeline on the monitor. 3 years of a man who smiled at her over dinner and asked about her day and drove them to his parents' house on holidays, and had simultaneously been in the margins of all of it, looking for what she had, trying to find it. And when he couldn't find it directly, getting close enough to take pieces of it without her knowing. She had thought she was invisible to him. She had been wrong. He had seen exactly enough to want more. Before we go further, I have to stop here. Because what Priya just laid out is not just a legal problem. It is a specific kind of violation that is very hard to name. Maya built something in private because she understood, instinctively, that her financial independence was something she needed to protect. And the person she was protecting it from found a way in anyway. If you've ever built something carefully, quietly, and had someone take from it without asking, you know exactly what this moment costs. Tell me in the comments. I want to hear from you. There was more. Priya turned to the third monitor. DRS Capital, the Nevada LLC. Your attorney identified it as the entity Daniel used to reclassify the joint assets. What James Whitfield's forensic accounting found was the $900,000 current valuation. What he hadn't yet gotten to, what I found when I pulled the full corporate filing history, is that DRS Capital is not the only entity. Maya looked at her. There's a second one. Yes. Registered in Wyoming 14 months ago. A week after you signed the document, Daniel presented it as a refinancing agreement. It's called Meridian Asset Group. Priya paused. And Meridian has a co-registrant. The word landed quietly, but Maya felt the weight of it immediately. Who? Priya looked at her steadily. A woman named Vanessa Holt. 32 years old. She works in Daniel's firm, not as a partner, as a senior analyst. She has been listed on the Meridian filing as a co-founder. The affair, the entity, the same woman, filed 1 week after Maya had unknowingly signed the document that gave Daniel the legal architecture to move their assets. It was not a coincidence. It was a plan. Maya drove home from Priya's office on autopilot. She didn't call Sandra from the car. She didn't call Claire. She needed the 22 minutes of the drive to do something she rarely allowed herself to do in the middle of a process that required clear thinking. She needed to feel it. Not perform it. Not manage it. Just feel the full specific weight of what she had just learned. The man she had married at 26 had not simply been unfaithful. He had not simply been careless with a legal document. He had been constructing something, deliberately, over years. A financial structure that involved the woman he was seeing, an entity that held assets redirected from their marriage, and the quiet, patient work of a man who had decided, at some point that Maya could not yet precisely identify, that she was someone to be managed rather than partnered. He had looked at Maya Sinclair, patient, warm, capable, disciplined Maya Sinclair, and decided she was someone he could work around. She pulled into the driveway, sat in the car for a moment, looked at the house she had made into a home with her own 2 hands and her own particular attention to every detail that made a space feel like it meant something. Then she picked up her phone and called Sandra. I just left Priya's office. I know, she called me. Maya, I'm sorry, I know this is a lot. There's a second entity, Meridian Asset Group. The woman he's been seeing is a co-founder. I know. This was planned, Sandra. Yes, I believe it was. A pause. Then so is everything we do from here, Maya said. Sandra had been doing this for 19 years. She had heard a lot of things across her office table, but the sentence Maya Sinclair had just delivered on that phone call, quiet, precise, with no tremor in it at all, was one she was going to remember for a long time. They met the following morning. James Whitfield was already there when Maya arrived. He had spent the previous night pulling Meridian Asset Group's filing history and cross-referencing it with DRS Capital's transaction records. The picture he had assembled by 7 in the morning was one that he presented to Maya with the careful directness of a professional who respects his client enough not to soften things unnecessarily. Meridian currently holds approximately $1.2 million in assets. Combined with DRS Capital, we are looking at just over $2 million that has been structured outside of your marital estate, some of it redirected from joint holdings, some of it grown using what we believe was unauthorized access to your research. The document you signed appears to have been the mechanism that made the initial transfer legally defensible, but only on the surface, because here is where it gets important. He leaned forward. The document was a 12-page amendment, but page 7, the clause that authorized the reclassification, contained language that was added after the original document was drafted. The formatting metadata in the digital file shows 2 distinct creation timestamps. The original document was created on one date. Page 7 was modified 4 days later. after it was sent to you. Maya looked at him. He altered the document after I received it. That is what the metadata indicates, which means the signature you provided was obtained under materially false pretenses. And the alteration of a legal document to obtain a signature constitutes fraud. The word sat in the middle of Sandra's office table like something solid and irreversible. Fraud. Daniel came home that evening with takeout and a story about a colleague who had said something ridiculous in a meeting. He was in one of his good moods, easy, expansive. The version of himself that had, once upon a time, been the reason Maya had believed in the life they were building together. She sat across from him at the kitchen island and listened to the story and laughed at the right moment and asked a follow-up question and was, by every visible measure, the same Maya she had always been to him. Warm, present, untroubling. She was also, beneath that, running through a precise sequence of next steps in a case that now involved document fraud, 2 concealed financial entities, and a co-conspirator who worked 20 feet from her husband's office every single day. She had learned, over years of being underestimated, how to hold 2 things at once. The version of herself the room expected, and the version of herself that was actually present. She was holding them both tonight with a steadiness that would have surprised everyone who had ever looked at her and seen only the housewife. After dinner, Daniel went to his home office to take a call. Maya cleared the table, washed the dishes, and then did something she had been planning for 3 days. She went to the hall closet. On the top shelf, behind a box of winter things, was a small external hard drive she had purchased with cash 6 weeks ago at an electronics store 40 minutes from their neighborhood. She had been copying specific files to it gradually, personal documents, records, research backups, in small, unhurried increments that would not register as unusual behavior on any shared network log. She took it down, looked at it for a moment, put it in her bag. Tomorrow morning, it was going to Sandra's office. It was the last piece of preparation she had been waiting to complete before Sandra filed. She was ready. But as Maya zipped her bag and turned toward the kitchen, her phone lit up on the counter. A notification from the banking app she used for one of her private accounts. An alert she had set up 18 months ago. One that would trigger if anyone ran a search on the account number. She picked up the phone. The alert read, "Account inquiry detected. External source. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m. 11:47. Daniel was in his office right now. Maya looked down the hallway. The light was on under his office door. He was looking. Right now. Tonight. He was looking for her accounts, and he was getting close. And he didn't know that she already knew. And he didn't know that the alert had just told her exactly what he was doing. She turned off the kitchen light. She walked calmly to her own office. She sat down. She pulled up her accounts. Not to hide them, it was too late for that, and she had always known this moment might come. But to confirm one final time that every structure Sandra and James had put in place to protect them was exactly where it needed to be. It was. And then she opened a message to Sandra. It read, "He's looking for the accounts. Tonight. It's time. File in the morning." She hit send. She closed the laptop. She sat in the quiet dark of her office and breathed. 30 years old. $6 million and climbing. A legal team that had been preparing for this moment for months. A forensic investigator with a timeline that documented every deception with precision. And a husband down the hall who still, even now, even tonight, did not fully understand who he had married. He was about to find out. Sandra filed at 9:15 the next morning. By 10 o'clock, Daniel Sinclair's attorney had received the preliminary disclosure documents. By 10:30, Daniel himself had received a call that Maya, watching the timestamp on her phone from across the city at Sandra's office, imagined arriving like an earthquake beneath his very certain, very constructed world. She was not there to see his face. She didn't need to be. But what happened at 11 o'clock that morning, what Daniel did in the 45 minutes after he got off the phone with his attorney, was something nobody on Maya's team had fully anticipated. He didn't call Vanessa. He didn't call his parents. He didn't reach out to any of the partners at his firm. He drove to Maya's mother's house. Maya's phone rang at 11:22. It was her mother. Her voice was careful, measured in the way of a woman who loves her daughter and is trying to figure out what to do with information she wasn't prepared to receive. Maya. Daniel is here. He's been here for 20 minutes. He's very upset. He's saying things about you, about money, about... He said you've been hiding things from him, that you've been deceiving him. He said, Mom. Maya's voice was steady and quiet. Don't let him tell you the story. I'm coming. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't say anything to him. Just make him tea and wait for me. She hung up. She looked at Sandra across the desk. He went to my mother. Sandra's expression was very controlled. He's trying to get ahead of the narrative. Shape the story before you can. He went to my mother, Maya said again. Not with anger. With a clarity that was, in its own way, more powerful than anger. Because Daniel Sinclair had just made his first visible mistake. He had shown his hand. He had gone to the one person he believed Maya loved enough to be destabilized by. He had decided that the right move, when cornered, was to go after something Maya cared about. He had miscalculated, again, because Maya's mother had raised a woman who had been preparing for exactly this moment. And when Maya walked through that front door in 20 minutes, it was not going to go the way Daniel had planned, not even close. That is the end of part 3 of They Thought She Was Just a Housewife until her fortune was revealed. And I need you to feel what just happened. Because Daniel, caught, cornered with a fraud filing and 2 concealed entities and a forensic timeline being built around him, chose to go to Maya's mother. He chose to go after the person he thought Maya couldn't protect. That tells you everything about who he is, and it tells you everything about the mistake he just made. What do you think Maya walks into when she gets to that house? What do you think she says? Tell me in the comments, because I read every single one. Like this video. Subscribe to Underestimated Saga so part 4 finds you the moment it drops. And share this with someone who needs Maya's story today. Because the woman he underestimated is walking through that door, and Daniel Sinclair has no idea what's coming.